Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here today on this November 18th, 2021. I am Nick Kinoki, the Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network, and today we are very excited for ALN Thursday at 3 and for Mark Knight, IAM USA Director of Projects. Please excuse me. And before we get underway, I just want to thank our patron sponsors, Definitive Logic, Onuma System, ABS Quality Evaluations, and ABS Group, and our organizational members as well for their continued support for our late Restructuring America conference that ended last week, and for the support for our newsletter and programs like this. Before we get underway, I just want to thank or say that next week on Thursday is Dr. Dorothy Robin from Boston University's Institute.
Actually, our next program, which is the Thursday after Thanksgiving, so that's November 2nd.
Thanks for that correction.
No, December 2nd.
Thanks for that correction, Mike. Yes, we will not be meeting next week to observe the holiday, but stay tuned for Dr. Dorothy Robin. And then one more plug before we start the talk with Mark Knight. ALN A55K professional certification courses starting December 6th. So if you're interested in that sort of professional development, please reach out to the Andrew James Advisory Group or anyone here at the ALN. And with that, I'll just say, if you're out there watching, we would love to hear from you. So please send any comments or questions to the chat or use the Q&A function of the Zoom webinar, and we'll put those questions to Mark. And with that, Mike Bordenaro, take us away.
Thank you, Nick, and appreciate what you do. And I like your sweater today.
Oh, thanks. Yes, my partner got it for me.
I got stripes on, and it's sweater weather for sure. So very happy to have Mark, and I'm very happy to announce that Mark's company is going to become a member of the ALN. So we're making Nick work really hard to get all the logos into the slides, and we might need to have a couple of slides with logos now. Mark approached us from his hat. Mark's one of the guys who wears many hats, and he first approached us from his position with the Institute of Asset Management here in North America, and we'll get into that later. But Mark, thank you for joining us. And we're going to start like we always do. How did you get here to where you're at currently in your asset management journey? And people will notice that you have a British accent. So the story starts back in the UK, and you're muted, so you'll have to take that off.
Thank you. So yeah, I guess you when you become an American citizen, one of the things you don't get is an accent to go with it, or from your perspective, you don't lose the accent, I guess. So yeah, how did I get here? I'll do the Cliff Notes version, I guess. I mean, I've, as you can see from my job history, I jump around a lot because I kind of follow things that are interesting. I like to have fun and do things that make a difference. And, you know, I've worked for basically the UK government's equivalent of national labs in the UK, doing work on grid research. I've worked for the US Department of Energy's national labs. I was actually a chief engineer at one of the national labs before I came to my current job. I've worked for a utility in the UK. I've worked for a utility in the US, and I've done consulting, product development, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. But it's always been about looking for where you can make improvement. And so breaking down silos, improving process integration, improving information sharing, just stuff that makes good sense. And, you know, as it happened, having been doing that for years, I was working for a company that was a patron of the Institute of Asset Management. And they were encouraging employees to join as associate members. And I don't know, I like interesting things. So I thought, why the heck not? And I signed up. And started reading through some of the material. And that's when I guess I went from an asset management hobbyist to taking a really strong interest. So, I mean, it was, I guess, probably about 10 years ago plus, so before the ISO standards, but you know, when PAS 55 really had a lot of traction. So having been voluntold to get more involved, the IAM had some calls for participation in SSGs, which are their subject specific guidelines. So for each of the 39 areas of the subjects that make up asset management, they're trying to put together guidelines for each of those. And one of them that they didn't have a team for was reliability engineering. And one of the things I've done as a utility employee is done a lot of operational reporting and looking into reliability, root cause analysis and stuff like that. So I put my name down and was asked if I would then lead the group. And I said, no, I've never done anything with you guys before. So I'll do it if nobody else wants to do it. And then I guess a few weeks later, I got a welcome to the SSG email announcing me as the team lead and for anybody to contact me with questions. Because I guess I said I would take half a pace forward and everybody else took 2 paces backwards. So that was a bit of an eye opener. But
in what way?
Well, I think I have to be careful how I say this. Professional organizations sometimes look very big and formal and imposing. And I think from the outside, the IAM probably looks a bit like that. So, you know, jumping in with a bunch of people who out-expert you can be a bit daunting. But when you actually throw yourself into stuff like this, you find out that everybody else is just like you. They're doing this because they got a passion. They love what they're doing. And I mean, 8-9 years or whatever on from that first SSG that I got involved with, I'm still in touch with a bunch of the people that collaborated on that. And you know, you learn from people, you bring your different perspectives together, you kind of come up with a kind of, you know, common understanding, and writing these guidelines in a way that it takes people to the next. It's not meant to be a, you know, kind of a book. It's just meant to be somebody that's heard of this topic. You know, it gets them started and points them in the right direction. I really, really enjoyed that. And, you know, obviously at the time, the IAM USA branch was only just in the process of kicking off. So everybody else I was working with was either in the UK and one in Australia. So the meeting times were very antisocial. And on top of work, it was a lot of extra effort. But for the first week when it was finished, I was relieved, and then I really missed it. And I've got involved in half a dozen of these since then. I also, you know, when the Global Forum announced that it was going to do a review on whether to do a rewrite on their landscape document, the IAM hadn't announced that it was going to do a review yet, but the Asset Management Council in Australia had. And I'd heard a lot of good things about them. So I actually contacted them and said, hey, I'm not a member, but here's my resume. Can I join your team? And they said, yes, they'd be glad to have me. Had a couple of 2 a.m. calls doing that. And I think after the second call, I signed up as a member because I was just tremendously impressed with how engaged they were. And that's one of the things that I've enjoyed with ALN so far. But I mean, so for me, it's been a progression through that to, you know, the more things you get involved in, the more people you know. I eventually ended up on the USA Executive Committee as Director of Projects, which essentially is helping curate and develop new knowledge, but with a US perspective. And since I've been in that position, we've basically been in lockdown for most of it. So it's been very difficult to engage people, but I'm also on the IAM's knowledge leadership group, which is, and my role there is to coordinate activity with the various national chapters and try and encourage them to develop knowledge, which brings me to what the IAM is, I guess. And interrupt me anytime you want to just ask questions.
I'm
Mike.
fascinated. Like I said beforehand, one question, and I think that'll be a 30-minute interview. But yeah, go ahead.
So, well, and I haven't gone off topic yet, but well, I'm sure I will. In fact, we had a safety moment on a call this morning, and it was about climbing ladders. Yeah, always maintain 3 points of contact. And if you listen to NFL coaches about how running backs should hold a football, I think there's at least 6 points of contact. And it was interesting to me that there's twice as many points of contact for holding a football as there are for staying safe on a ladder. So, anyway, so back
You were
to
talking about the
IAM.
IAM and what it is. Yes.
So the IAM is both a learned society and a professional association. So it's a professional body that produces knowledge, and I'm lucky to be involved in doing that from the US side and also trying to guide that globally. But it's also a member body where our members consume knowledge. So to me, value is a function both of engagement and knowledge itself. And I am a huge proponent of member engagement. I honestly think that's the key to success. You know, do you get more value out of 5% more knowledge material or 5% more engagement with your members? I mean, I don't think there's any real answer to that. But to me, the more engaged the members are, the more they can learn from each other, the more they can find new knowledge, the more that we're going to get new volunteers to participate. And, you know, we talked about the ALN and the idea of a relationship was really interesting. But what I like about the ALN is that you guys epitomize what I just said, right? It's all about member engagement, value, and interaction, rather than producing lots of learned material. I'm not saying you don't produce really good stuff. We've got some planned in terms of collaboration with you, as you said in your email, but it's the engagement that really drives me, I think. I mean, that's how you create value. It's how you get other people around you engaged. I mean, like when I hire people, I mean, you obviously want to hire experts in any topic, but the two key characteristics I look for are intelligence and enthusiasm, because enthusiasm is contagious. If you have smart people doing a good job, they get people around them fired up. You get good relationships, you know, and things just take off and go in all kinds of directions. Member engagement and the way that the ALN does that, I've really liked that. And that's why I ended up in this job. I mean, I was doing research for the Department of Energy, and asset management wasn't on the list of topics. And the research schedules are pretty much planned, you know, 3 years ahead. And occasionally, I think I'm a very logical and organized person, but I can also be, I guess I've got strong left and right brain drivers, let's put it that way. Because I went on a leadership course with a previous company where we went through, you know, psychological assessment. And so you've got very organized over here and very spontaneous over here, right? Oh, I've got an invisible hand. And I came back from that, and I said I had dinner with my team on a project I was on. I said, so organized, spontaneous, where am I? And I thought they were going to go way over here, and they all went that way. And given the amount of time I spend analyzing and thinking about things and planning, that really surprised me. So again, you know, that's why I left research and came back into consulting. And why I think there's a really good opportunity to build something between the IAM and the ALN, and hopefully we can produce some material, but you know, not lengthy tomes, just, you know, quick, short, direct, engage people, and hopefully we can build you know, interactive sessions like this around that, podcasts, short webinars, whatever it may be.
Exactly. We're really starting to understand that it's not about tools and processes. Those are there and are in place. It's about reaching the decision makers to support them as they transform their organization, because these tools transform your organization. If you're just looking for a Band-Aid for something, do not apply. What adherence to ISO 55000 does is dramatically change the way you're going to do business, and it's going to increase your mission success. So those people, please join.
And it's beautiful to see that in action when you see it well done. I mean, I think, the confusion over what asset management is doesn't help. The mix up with maintenance and work management. And, I one of the things I really do like is the IAM conceptual model, where it breaks it into the 6 boxes. It's one of the ways I start talking about asset management to people, and then throw all 39 areas at them. And then when they recoil from that, let's explore what each of them are. What do they mean? How are they important to you? And by the way, you're doing all of these things anyway, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing them, what does that mean? Well, first of all, it means that you don't have to build an empire to do asset management, because the only person that all those 39 areas report to is the CEO, which means you have to work across silos. So it's a framework for breaking down silos, coordinating processes, and sharing information. And if you start from that and then pick, 6 to 10 of those 39 areas and say, let's go through a prioritization exercise and then start with these. And then as we make progress and pick the ones that you hope are foundational to other things you can build on, then you can actually get into that. And I've seen that in action at other companies where it's working well. And it's incredible, because we were literally in a boardroom one day with people with oily jeans and hard hats the next day. I think we visited 4 sites in 4 days, and we were taking down random nameplate data off of equipment and asking them, when was this last worked on? Why? What? When was the last time it went wrong? And everybody saw the value in understanding that and how it could benefit decision making, improving maintenance. It's just, I'd like I see my role as trying to help as many people get to that point as possible. And part of that is just explaining to people what the heck asset management is.
Well, that's why it's so good to be partnering with you in both your roles, with the IAM and with 1898 and Company, which is a division of Burns and McDonald, or a subsidiary. What's the legal?
I think we just say a part of. So I mean, Burns and McDonald it's a family of companies, but I guess the main engineering company has 10 global practices, and we are one of them.
What is your focus?
Consulting. I know that's a very vague term, but people ask me what we do that's different to the rest of the company, and that's the question's kind of inverted. It's what the rest of the company does that's different to us. So the other 9 practices really, we build airport terminals, water processing plants. I mean, you name it, we build it. And obviously we have to do consulting to support that and around that. Whereas our group doesn't build anything. All we do is consulting. And a lot of the consulting is electric utilities, some water, some oil and gas, but primarily we look much like a what I would call a typical utility consulting company.
Okay.
So
have you helped any organization go through an ISO process?
Yes. I mean, we are not a certified assessor, but we have worked with one as part of an audit, and that's what I was referring to with the example. So we didn't help put the processes in place, but to go and see what other people have helped companies do and see it in action was really quite mind-blowing. And as I think I talked to you before, I've actually used asset management as a way to show people internally how what we do relates to each other within our business lines that we have, and mapping how each business line maps to those 39 areas. And if you go through that, you find that you can actually cross all of them off. But if you then look at where there are overlaps between different business lines based on that, it shows, to me, it shows us how we can actually add value to our clients by combining offerings sometimes. Because if you've got a 60% overlap of where it maps to the asset management framework between two business lines, then they should really be working together on more coordinated efforts to help our clients. So we've done some asset management strategy roadmaps, all the kind of usual stuff. That's what I really enjoy doing, because it's at that conceptual level where people's heads are spinning and you're trying to make it complicated, but before they panic, bring it down, simplify it, and come up with a structured way to take that forward.
Excellent. So what are some of the things that are being talked about at the IAM North America that would help spread the word, things that the ALN can help you with?
Oh, I should have been ready for that question. I'm not actually sure, because I spoke at the conference we had this year, and like everybody else, I'm sort of double and triple booked most of the day. So I've been trying to catch up on the sessions, going back and listening to them afterwards. But one of the things I have done, and I may have to give you a delayed answer on this.
Okay.
But I asked the organizing committee to go back and look through all of the sessions that we had and look for what were the recurring themes, as it were, because to me that suggests things that we ought to be focusing on in North America. We got ahead of the UK conference and basically did the same thing to them and said, before the conference starts, what we want you to do is look out for emerging topics. Also look out for, what have you been trying to find out information about, but you haven't really been able to do a good job, or you can't find it exists and there's new knowledge that needs to be created. So haven't had the kind of the summary from the UK conference yet, but we'll actually have a meeting later today for the US Executive Committee. So I did ping out an email earlier this week seeing if anybody had those responses yet, but not every country approaches things in the same way, and the UK was obviously had a bit of a jump start with PAS 55. So we're at a different point to them, and as much as I sound like I guess I am from over there, but all the superfluous using words and the S's instead of Z's, we'd like to generate some material that people can actually read and understand straight away that's relevant to what's happening in the US.
Well, what we're finding, we can give you the report from our side, is that there needs to be a bridge from the leadership to the people who are touching the assets. And clearly the Asset Leadership Network was set up to try to make the message of asset management relevant in the C-suite. And it can't be done separately from what's happening on the ground. And there's a theological difference between talking about the leadership, what's necessary from leadership to improve asset management, and what's necessary on the ground level to improve asset management. Jim Dieter, our CEO, says that our bridges are not falling down because we don't know how to maintain bridges. Our bridges are falling down because leadership has not marshaled the will to maintain the bridges, which is not an easy task to do. So we're trying to figure out how to make that message relevant to both the C-suite and where the boots are touching the ground.
Plus, I think what you said is really, an example of the squeaky wheel syndrome, and when you look at the lifetime of assets, certainly in the utility industry and with transportation and things like dams and just large capital infrastructure, you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 10 decades lifetime, and people can easily ignore that and make quick hit improvements during their tenure and get promoted doing that. But it's that long-term view where things start crumbling and getting into disrepair, and we've got a lot of that going on.
United States Air Force, Russell Weniger made a really great presentation and said, we are 15 years into a 20 or 25-year asset management improvement at the Air Force. And I just love the vision that requires. And the fact that he's 3/4 of the way through it shows that, he's had the perseverance to have that long-term view. And I don't think many private companies are going to be thinking like that, but it's a very good government example.
So I want to go back to what you were just talking about as well, about leadership, which is obviously the whole kind of North Star for what you do. But one of the things we're working on right now is helping a utility with some grid modernization work. And we actually have a change management practice, which is kind of what I'm focusing on with this particular engagement. But the key to change management is effective sponsorship and leadership. And it's the same thing for asset management. So to your point about connecting leadership to the people that are touching the assets, that's actually one of the things we're helping them with, but from a change management perspective. But it's so interlinked, right? And change management is actually one of those things that's missing out of the 39 areas. I mean, there's management of change over in the risk and review group, if you know what I'm referring to. But that's proactive technical risk mitigation. So it's not the people side of things. And at the end of the day, people do asset management. And if they aren't on board, you're not going to get the value you're looking for, and people are going to lose interest in asset management. Asset management really is just an effective way to manage a capital intensive business, right? I mean, it's, in fact, what I was talking about frameworks earlier, the ISO definition, the coordinated activity of an organization, the coordinated activity, that's what it's all about. Yeah. And you can't coordinate if you don't get that reinforcement from leadership.
Yeah,
I guess you can, but it's more effective if people are encouraging you and watching you.
Yeah. So my sister taught me a phrase last week. We're all going through change fatigue.
Yeah.
There are so many new tools coming out all the time. There's so many new ways of changing the channel on your TV. Cars now have, rear view. There's so much changing so quickly now that part of what leadership can do is give guidance to how that change is being implemented in the organization. And the ISO 55000 structure provides that ability for people to understand, okay, we're going to be doing this in a 3-year cycle, and I need to know this software for 3 years, but in 3 years when we do it again, there'll probably be a new software, but it will be helping us do the same thing, which is improve our mission.
So I like taking down sound bites when I'm listening to presentations at conferences. One of the ones that I heard at the IAM conference a couple of years ago in Chicago was a quote from Justin Trudeau. And I may mess this up, but it was something along the lines of, change now is faster than it's ever been, and yet it's never going to be this slow again. So change fatigue is something we have to learn to manage. And it gets complicated as well with we in industries with asset life cycles of 30, 40, 50 years, you can put intelligent sensors on them to give you heads up onto the performance of the asset and the condition of it. But those sensors aren't going to last that time. So now you've got a whole nother life cycle within the life cycle to manage for those sensors. And what's the cost benefit of that? So technology is helping us, but it's also complicating things.
Yeah, this is the original digital technology. It can help you up or it can push you down. It's not the technology, it's how you use it. It always has been, and it always will be. So thank you for spending time with us to talk about our future together. actually. So part of the things that I want to do is have some type of web programs with ALN North America where we can focus in on some of these areas of interest to you and do a deeper dive to help the people know what asset management is and how to benefit from it. So glad to connect with you and align our common interests, and we'll be seeking mutual benefits, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So thank you. And thanks to everyone for attending. And again, I wanted to thank our patron sponsors and our organizational members, which now includes, is it going to be Burns McDonald, or is it going to be 1898 and Company? It can be both.
Good question. We get
can be
twice the
both.
publicity, right? That way?
Yeah, we'll figure that out before we put your logo here. Maybe there's a way to do both the logos together or something.
Actually, there is. So we'll go with 1898.
Okay, for now. And then everybody, if you can, join us on November 2nd with Dorothy Robin, and everybody. Very happy Thanksgiving. We are very thankful for the high level of engagement that we get from our supporters and from our organizational members. So we're very thankful. And thank you, Mark, for joining us. We look forward to more conversations in the future.
Thank you, Mike. Looking forward to working with you.
All right.